Hey there, friends, and welcome to episode 272 of Just the Zoo of Us. This week, I'm joined by a parasite ecologist for a look at some bizarre and fascinating creatures that, despite their tiny size, impact our world and even our very selves in way more surprising ways than you might expect. We discuss Osmosis Jones, frogs with too many legs, disco-eyed snails, mind control, an existential crisis, a ghost from Cretaceous oceans, fossil poop, and so much more. Just the Zoo of Us presents Dr. Chelsea L. Wood's Top 3 Parasites. Hello, everybody. It's Ellen Weatherford with Just the Zoo of Us, your favorite animal review podcast, and I am so excited this week to have a brand new friend for y'all. This is Dr. Chelsea L. Wood. Say hello, Chelsea.
Hi, Ellen. Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Chelsea, what are your pronouns?
I use she, her pronouns.
Thank you so much. Before we talk about our, I will say fascinating and maybe a morbid curiosity sort of way for a lot of people, before we talk about our parasite pals for today, let's talk about you a little bit because, Chelsea, you have done some really fascinating work in ecology and with diseases, things like that. So what has this journey been like for you?
Yeah, well, right now I'm a professor in the School of Aquatic and Fishery Sciences at the University of Washington. I've been a parasite ecologist for about 20 years. And in the lead up to this current position, I did my undergraduate, my bachelor's degree in ecology. I worked as a scientific editor for a couple of years. And then I did a PhD in ecology and a couple of postdocs before landing my current job as a professor.
What got you into working with parasites? Like, how do you end up there?
Oh, it's a great question because, no one is born a parasite ecologist. A lot of us are born marine biologists, right? It's a very romantic, glamorous field. There's a lot of media that shows us what it's like to be a marine biologist. And I was one of those kids. I knew that I wanted to do science in the ocean from a very young age. But when I got to undergrad, I wound up at an institution where there was no marine biology at all. And so I worked on zooplankton in lakes for a little while. I ground up bark beetles for some studies on their impacts on trees. And I worked in an engineering lab. And then when I got to my junior year of undergrad, I decided I wanted to do real marine biology in the ocean. So I asked my advisor to set me up with a friend of hers who does marine biology stuff. And the person who she knew who was doing that kind of work, he happened to be working on parasites. And when I went into that lab, I was like, ugh, parasites are gross. I hate them. I can't believe this is what I have to work on in order to get my foot in the door as a marine biologist.
It's like how you have to start off as the dishwasher before you can work your way up to chef.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I thought about them as I came in. But I did a 10-week internship in that lab, and over the course of that time, they just got under my skin. I fell in love with them, and I've never looked back.
It's an acquired taste, maybe.
Yeah, they're the sort of animals that you have to learn about in order to love. You look at them and they look gross, but as you look closer, as you see them at their own level, you start to realize that they have their own kind of beauty. It's not as obvious as a whale or a dolphin, but it's there.
You got to work for it. You have to earn an appreciation for parasites. Like ogres and onions, baby. They got layers.
They got layers.
How do parasites tie into ecology? Because when we think about parasites, we don't really, I think about their role in the ecosystem outside of just them and their host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like any other group of organisms, parasites are organized into species. And just like you say the word predator, and that means lions and tigers and bears. It means all these different species. Same for parasites. They're extremely different from one another, and they all do different things in ecosystems. For parasites, one of their most important functions is that they keep a cap on the abundance of their host populations, just the same way that wolves keep a cap on the abundance of elk in Yellowstone National Park. Parasites are out in the world keeping a cap on the abundance of hosts that would otherwise become so abundant as to be pests. That's just one of their functions, but just like predators, they play roles in ecosystems that are valuable. It's just that the predators are easy to see and the parasites are hard to see.
See, they get all the hype.
They get all
the
the hype.
predators are just, they have a better PR team. They've got better marketing.
They sure do, for now.
For now, that's right. We're changing things. We're changing the game. We're pioneers in the pro-parasite propaganda department.
That's my job.
So one of the reasons we're talking about parasites today is because you have this book, this brand new book, Power to the Parasites, which I think, getting enthusiastic and excited about parasites can be a hard sell for a lot of people. But, I mean, for me at least, first of all, I love being a contrarian. So I love when everyone hates something and I get to be like, no, I'm going to be the one that loves this thing. So what has the experience of writing this book about parasites been like for you?
Oh, this book was such a pleasure to write. I just sat down so excited to get to the computer in the morning, and I had to be dragged away at the end of a writing day. It was so much fun. And really, this book is meant for middle grade readers. It's intended for children between the ages of 8 and 12. But honestly, it's the same stories that I teach in my upper level undergraduate parasite ecology course. A lot of these stories are going to be extremely familiar to my students, and I changed very little to get it in a form suitable for children. Basically, this is a college course for 8 to 12-year-olds on parasites. And the thing about parasites is that they're just so cool and weird and different that learning about them is exciting. It's like getting a peek into an alien world, a world that's totally different from our own. And the coolest part about it is it's not an alien world. It's happening all around us all the time. We just don't see it.
Possibly not just around us, but possibly, in fact, within us at times.
That's the hard facts of it. Absolutely. Inside our very own bodies.
I think a lot of times people's first thought when they think of parasites is like the diseases that they can cause in us, right? Like It might just not just be the parasite's presence, but like the parasite's presence induces a disease or something. Do parasites and diseases always go hand in hand?
Not necessarily. So the parasite is the organism, the animal or the virus or the bacterium that is causing a disease. And the disease is the change in the host tissues that occur as a result of their infection with a parasite. Now, parasites are by definition bad for their hosts. We define parasites as organisms that live in or on a host and cause harm to that host. So in order to be a parasite, you have to be causing harm. You have to be causing disease. But there's a difference between a very benign parasite and one that's very virulent or that causes very severe disease. And parasites run the gamut from things that you would never notice, that take so little of your energy that there is no way that you could quantify the difference between having them there and not. And parasites that can kill you. And there's everything in between those two ends of the spectrum.
You could have one right now and have no idea.
Almost certainly you do.
Oh, no. That's not what I wanted. Well, you know what? You're never alone.
Never.
You've always got a buddy. Your body is an ecosystem. There's all sorts of stuff going on in there.
It sure is. And, even if you leave aside the parasites, your body is full of mutualistic partners, right? Your gut is full of bacteria that do a lot of the digestion for you. We call those mutualists because they provide a benefit to their host, but they live in or on the host just like parasites do. And in amongst those mutualists, there's almost certainly a parasite lurking. And that's, just the gut bacteria, leaving aside all the other things that could possibly be living inside of you.
It's a happy little town in there. Have you ever seen the movie Osmosis Jones?
No.
You might like it. It's a cartoon from like 20 years ago, and it's basically about like the human body, but like all the little different parts of the body are like cartoon characters. And the main character is like, is he a white blood cell? I think the main character is, yes, white blood cell, Osmosis Jones. The guy that they're all inside is played by Bill Murray. And the whole movie is about like the like white blood cells and the like cells inside of his body all having to like fight off a deadly virus.
Sold.
It's like a buddy cop movie where the white blood cell has to like team up with this like pill that enters the body. So I was thinking about that because you were describing all of the different like communities and organisms inside the body that all just kind of like work together, or sometimes don't work together, work against each other maybe sometimes. It's a diverse world in there. You contain multitudes.
We sure do. And I know what I'm watching tonight. Thank you for the recommendation.
You might like it. It came out in 2001. I haven't watched it in like 20 years. I do not know how it holds up. I'm sorry if you watch it and you're like, oh no, this is extremely dated. Anyway, Osmosis Jones aside, today we wanted to look at a little bit of a highlight reel. We wanted to kind of play the hits of the parasite world. And I wanted to talk to you about your top 3 parasites. Chelsea, what's your number 3 parasite?
My number 3 parasite is Riboroia ondatrae.
Who is this? Who is she?
We have a nickname for her that significantly simplifies that Latin mouthful. We call her Rib for short. This is a flatworm parasite that infects amphibians, and it causes these horrifying extra limbs to grow on the hind end of the amphibian, so that instead of 2 back legs, a frog might have 3 or 4, sometimes even 5. And there's a very special reason for that to happen.
Does the growth of extra limbs benefit the parasite in some way? Why would it do that?
It sure does. You're on the right track here.
Oh, dear.
Back in the 90s, there was this big uproar because people were suddenly discovering all of these amphibians with extra limbs. And all kinds of ideas were floated to explain why this was happening. A lot of people thought it was some sort of secret radioactive spill or some sort of pollutant that was causing
It's aliens for sure, right? Like,
it could be aliens.
It's aliens.
It's a reasonable hypothesis. And I'm sure that was one of the hypotheses that was floated at the time. But in fact, what was going on was that people were just starting to notice this extremely natural process that is normal in ecosystems. Rib is a flatworm parasite that moves from frogs into birds. And it completes its life cycle in the gut of a bird. So it wants its amphibian host, its frog host, to wind up in the gut of a bird. That's how the parasite fulfills its destiny.
Oh, so the frog isn't even like the end game. The frog is the vehicle they're taking
Yep, the frog
to the restaurant.
is just a vehicle to get to their ultimate destination. And the parasite can just wait in the frog for it to get eaten by a bird, because that happens pretty frequently. You know, a lot of wading birds prey on frogs in ponds. And, you know, it's fine to wait. But of course, the parasite's going to benefit if it can find a way to make it likelier to get into the gut of a bird.
Right.
And so it's developed this incredibly innovative solution, which is that the baby parasites, when they infect a tadpole, will burrow into the developing limb buds of that tadpole before it even has legs. And it'll mess with those limb buds in such a way that the limb buds wind up producing 2 legs instead of 1, or 3 legs instead of 1. And the result is a frog that has all these extra legs dangling off the back of its body. And of course, a frog with all that extra tissue is going to have a much harder time hopping away from a predator.
Oh, they're kind of kneecapping the frog.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I thought you were going to say that it has extra legs and it looks extra tasty to a bird because the legs are like the tasty part.
I mean, that's the part that we eat, but birds eat the whole thing.
Okay, it makes a little bit more sense though that this is a mobility reducing mechanism. That makes more sense than what I thought.
It's ingenious in its simplicity. You can induce the same kind of developmental issues in a frog just by using a razor blade to cut the limb bud of that tadpole as it's developing. And the parasite has figured that out just the same way that we have. And as a result, it's able to increase the number of baby parasites that get from frogs into birds, which of course benefits the parasite and hurts the host, the frog host. So it's just ingenious, beautiful.
And the poor frog is just collateral damage. The parasite is like, I do not care what happens to this frog. It is so diabolical.
It's pretty diabolical, yeah. And, a lot of times parasites are invested in the survival of their host. The host dies, the parasite dies. And so the parasite has incentive not to take too much from the host because it needs it to keep living. But in this case, because the parasite's trying to get to a bird as its final host, it is very invested in that frog dying in the beak of a bird.
It's like if you had like a disposable car. Like every time you drove it anywhere, you had to just like you had to like jump out of the car and let it keep going like off a cliff every single time you went anywhere.
Precisely.
That poor frog, though, like the frog has done nothing. The frog is like barely involved in this transaction and gets killed over it. Man, you hate to see it.
I mean, that's nature, red and tooth and claw, right?
I suppose the bird also gets a meal out of it.
That's right.
So
the bird definitely benefits, and there are examples where we can measure the amount of additional prey that's available to predators as a result of parasitism. And parasites feed a lot of predators this way.
Oh.
We have a lot more predators in the world because there are parasites, because parasites have this incentive to move prey hosts into the jaws or the beaks of predator hosts.
There's like a sabotage going on where they're like, I don't know, it seems like it's conspiracy between predator and parasite. They're like, we're gonna work together to essentially screw over this middleman between us. Now, does the worm affect the bird once it's in the bird?
Mildly, but not to the same degree that it affects the frog. The parasite will live as an adult in the gut of the bird. And it'll absorb some of the bird's nutrients, but such a small amount that the bird would really never notice. And then it finds a mate in the bird's intestine, and they produce eggs, and those eggs are dispersed in bird poop to infect the next host.
So the bird is a nightclub that the frog is just the limo. The frog is the limo that drives all the worms to the nightclub.
The disposable limo. Yes, exactly.
The single-use limo. The bird really got off easy here.
It sure did. Major beneficiary.
Everything's coming up worms. Putting up numbers in the win column for birds and worms. Unfortunately, frogs suffered in this one. Sorry, sure. Frogs. We love you. You did not win on this one. Also, like, were you planning on talking about the parasite that makes the snail eyes go all like disco mode?
Oh, I wasn't, but I can. That's Leucochloridium paradoxum, and it's sometimes called the green-banded broodsac. It is closely related to Riboroia ondatrae, because they're both trematode flatworms, but they have very different life cycles. And in the case of Leucochloridium, the worms crawl up into the eye stalks of snails and create these beautiful patterns and movements that are very eye-catching.
Pulsating. Like colorful and vivid, and like, boy, it's bizarre. It's freaky to look at.
Yeah, there are lots of really good videos on YouTube. So if you Google green banded broodsac, you should be able to see what this parasite looks like in real life. And it is wild, absolutely wild. It looks artificial, but it's completely natural and normal. And of course, birds are attracted to this color and movement, and they eat these snails, which is precisely what the parasite wants. That's where it wants to wind up.
Boy, this family really has a lot of tricks up their sleeve.
They're pretty amazing, and there are tens of thousands of them. Not all of them do such wild things, but a lot of them do, and they're very understudied. So we almost surely have a bunch more weird manipulations that haven't yet been discovered.
Oh, great. Can't wait. Awesome. So excited for that. It's also funny that like people didn't notice all these frogs with like extra legs until like the 90s, when suddenly people are like, I wonder what that's all about.
It's so true, though, that, there are all these parasites in the world that we suddenly discover. We think they're brand new, and then we actually look at the data and we realize that they've been around for ages. Lyme disease is a great example. It only received its name in the late 1970s. It was named for Lyme, Connecticut, which is the first place where patients were positively identified carrying Borrelia burgdorferi, which is a bacterium that causes Lyme disease. But it's been with us for thousands of years. It's circulated in North America for thousands of years, including among humans. It's been detected in Ötzi the Iceman, who is
Whoa!
he's a Bronze Age corpse unearthed in the Italian Alps in the 1990s. And if you sequence the DNA in his body, you'll find a Borrelia sequence that is probably Borrelia burgdorferi. It hasn't been confirmed as that species, but it's the same genus of rickettsial bacteria. So, this is a human disease. So obviously there's a lot of incentive and a lot of research effort going into figuring out what parasites infect people. But even for human diseases, we're only very recently discovering things that have been with us for a very long time.
What a time to be alive. What an exciting time of discovery to learn, like, just to slowly, because I'm thinking back to, like, even just a few, 100 years ago when people thought there were just, like, 4 types of things in our bodies. When they're, we're like, there's just 4 things, and everything in your body is one of these 4 things. And now we're like, oh, there's actually, like, millions of species of, like, organisms that have been living in your body for, like, in all of our bodies for thousands of years. We just had no idea that they were there.
We are our own ecosystems, an ecosystem within an ecosystem.
We're a microcosm. You are a microcosm.
I sure am. Can't speak for you, but I know I am.
Hey there, we're going to take a quick break to hear from a couple of our friends on the Maximum Fun Network. When we get back, we are rating Chelsea's top 2 parasites, so stay with us.
The Flophouse is a podcast where we watch a bad movie and then we talk about it.
Robert Shaw in Jaws, and they're trying to figure out how to get rid of the ghoulies, and he scratches his nails and goes, I'll get your ghoulie.
He's just standing above the toilet with a harpoon. No, I was just looking forward to you going through the other ways in which Wild Wild West is historically inaccurate.
You know how much movies cost nowadays when you add in your popped corn and your bagel bites and your cheese fritters?
You can't go wrong with a Henry Cavill mustache. Here at Henry Cavill Mustaches, the only supplier.
The Flophouse. New episodes every Saturday. Find it at MaximumFun.org.
Ego sum John Hodgman.
At Ego sum Janet Varney.
And we're the hosts of E Pluribus Motto, a podcast dedicated to exploring the mottos of every state in the Union.
Every episode, we will spotlight one state and discuss its official symbols, the motto, flowers, birds, beverages, songs, and even official state muffins.
Plus, we'll hear from guests whose lives have been inspired by the state's iconography and from residents who call that state home.
Bring some snacks, a map, and your travel journal because this podcast is a virtual journey like no other.
Audi nostrum e pluribus motto quae libet alia lunae de maximum fun.
And for the Latin challenged among you and us, listen to E Pluribus Motto every other Monday on Maximum Fun.
What is parasite number 2 on your list?
Parasite number 2 is Toxoplasma gondii.
This is a familiar sound.
A lot of people have heard of toxo because it is a cat parasite.
The cat poop one.
That's right. And it's frequently transmitted to people.
I'll tell you how I've heard of it. I have been pregnant twice. And that was a big thing where both times I was pregnant, doctors advised me not to scoop cat poop because I guess it's a higher risk when you're pregnant.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a protozoan parasite related to the parasite that causes malaria. They're very closely related, actually.
Wow.
But this one is transmitted between cats and rodents. People become involved when they clean a cat litter box and accidentally ingest some of the parasite eggs. If, for example, you don't wash your hands afterwards. You can also get it if you let your cat use the litter box and then walk around on the kitchen counters, and there are eggs then on the counters that can get onto food. And then people can also be infected when they eat undercooked meat because cows, sheep can consume the eggs, for example, on grass, and then become infected themselves and then pass that on to people if people eat the meat of those cows or sheep and it isn't cooked well enough.
So what is this? What is this little guy?
Yeah, it's naturally transmitted between cats and rodents. So it lives in the gut of a cat, and there it mates and produces eggs. Those eggs go out into the environment. They're consumed by rodents, which then become host to the larval stage of the parasite. And at that point, the parasite needs to get back into the gut of a cat. So just like the trematodes that we discussed, this parasite could wait around for that to happen, or it could encourage that process along by making it likelier for the rodent host, the mouse or the rat, to wind up in the jaws of the cat. And the parasite does that in a really tricky way. It makes the rodent reckless. It makes it slower to respond to threats. It even makes, a normal rodent is really afraid of the smell of cats. And an infected rodent actually loves the smell of cats and runs right toward it. So it loses all of its inhibitions, all of its protective behaviors that keep it from getting eaten by a cat. And instead, infected rodents run right into danger and as a result are likelier to be consumed by cats.
That's wild. How is this tiny little parasite affecting the behavior?
And we're only just starting to get a handle on that, but it has to do with the biochemistry of the host. The parasite manipulates the neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that change the way that nerve impulses are sent. And by tweaking those chemicals, it can reverse the behavior of a host from, fear to attraction in response to a stimulus like the smell of cats.
We humans like to think we're so smart, but these little wormy guys are doing full-on brain surgery.
Full-on brain surgery, and it's not just on rodents, because you mentioned that you were warned not to clean cat litter boxes during pregnancy, and that's for a very good reason, which is that if you get infected by toxo during your pregnancy, it can pass through the fetus and cause major fetal abnormalities that can result in death. But if you're infected when you're not pregnant, usually you don't even notice. But even then, the parasite is pulling the strings of behavior.
Oh my gosh.
Infected people are likelier to get into car accidents. They're actually 3 times likelier to get into car accidents because their response times increase.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
That's wild. I've never heard that. And human, at least I think, human sort of brains and neurology is so much more, it's so different from a rodent's. I would be so surprised that a simple, organism like that could affect a human brain the same way as a rodent brain.
We like to think that we're very complicated, and we are, but we're built on the same blueprints as all other mammals. So what works in a rodent works in a human as well. This tiny single-celled parasite manages to outsmart us. And
oh my gosh.
The car accident thing is really well established. There's also some personality changes that you wind up seeing in people who are infected. Men who are infected tend to become more jealous and tend to break rules more and be more suspicious. Women who become infected tend to become more gregarious and warm and open. And these are very well established patterns that we see as a result of infection. It's really surprising to hear that something as personal as our own personalities can be shaped by a single-celled parasite, but that's the reality. And in fact, 1 out of every 3 people on the planet has this parasite, and most don't know it.
That is wild. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty warm and gregarious person. So now I'm kind of double thinking my personality. I'm like, is it me or is it the worms in my brain? Do I have worms in my brain?
Only one way to know. Got to go get tested.
Can I check for that? Is that something you can check for?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can request a test for toxoplasma from your physician. Whether insurance will cover it is an open question. Usually, if you're planning to get pregnant, insurance will cover it. But it's something that you can request, and any laboratory can perform the blood test required to see whether you have antigens to toxoplasma, whether you've ever been exposed in the past.
Is that the sort of thing where they could be like, yeah, you've got it? I mean, what do you do with that information? Do you get treatment for it? Or what if you're like, actually, I like being warm and gregarious. Maybe let him stay.
Once it's in you, there's no way to get rid of it.
Oh, man, it's game over.
It's game over. If you have an intact immune system, your immune system keeps a cap on the parasite's replication, so it just kind of beds down into a cyst form and is pretty inactive, but it still can, manipulate your behavior. People who have trouble with toxoplasma are folks who have a suppressed immune system. For example, folks who have AIDS or who are on drugs as in the wake of an organ transplant in order to suppress their immune system and reduce the likelihood of organ rejection. And for those folks, they don't have the immune capability of keeping the parasite in check, and they can wind up with full-blown toxoplasmosis, which is a serious condition.
Okay, so that's the disease.
That's the disease. But if you have an intact immune system, you might never know unless you get the test done.
Wild. The secrets that could be lurking within. And here I thought I was just a warm and gregarious person.
So the parasite wants you to think.
It's the parasites. The parasites in me want me to go to this party, I guess. Oh my gosh, that's so, you think about someone's like personality and the way that people like approach the world and navigate the world. Like you think of that as being like just who you are as a person, but it's like how much of that is who you are and how much of that is the impacts of all the different little species squiggling around in your body.
Who you are versus who your parasites want you to be.
Be the person your parasite wants you to be. Maybe rather than thinking about it in terms of who I am, maybe we should think about it in terms of who we are. Me and all my millions of little guys.
That's right. You're a conglomerate.
I'm going to start describing myself using the sort of royal we. I think we're getting hungry. Chelsea, what's your number one top favorite parasite?
Oh, this parasite is very close to my heart because...
I hope not literally.
Probably not. I wish, but she's not a human parasite, sadly. Amphelina foliacea is a tapeworm parasite that is unlike many, many other tapeworms, most other tapeworms. Amphi, as I like to call her, was kind of a mystery to parasitologists for a long time because most tapeworms look like a tape. Right? You've all seen pictures of tapeworms before. They're super long. They look like an unspooled roll of masking tape, and they live inside of the intestine of vertebrates, including humans. That's not to say that all tapeworms aren't beautiful and special in their own ways, but Amphi is very, very different from that. Amphi just looks like an oval with some squiggles inside, which is what larval baby tapeworms look like. But Amphi never attains the adult form of a tapeworm. She never turns into a tape. And today, you can find this parasite in sturgeon all over the world.
Oh.
So she was a mystery for a long time until one scientist wondered whether this parasite might have evolved the ability to reproduce sexually as a juvenile, as a larva, in response to the loss of her final host, the vertebrate host in which she would have attained that tape shape. And this scientist posited that the hosts that was lost were mosasaurs.
Oh, that aren't here anymore.
The marine reptiles that went extinct at the KT or Cretaceous tertiary boundary, the moment when that giant meteor struck Earth on the Yucatan Peninsula and plunged the entire Earth into darkness for years afterwards. 75% of species on the face of the planet died, and that included mosasaurs.
Big loss for parasites.
Exactly.
Bad day for parasites.
We suspect that the parasite then needed to evolve the ability to get along without that final host. And the way that it did so was to reach maturity in its larval form inside of sturgeons. Now, under normal circumstances, that'd be really hard for the parasite to do because it's living in the body cavity of this fish. And usually the body cavity isn't open to the outside world. So how are you meant to get your eggs out to the next stage if you're living in the body cavity? The tricky thing about sturgeons is that they have these things called celomoducts, which are ducts that connect their body cavity to the outside world. And so this parasite, through this combination of incredible luck and ingenuity, managed to avoid the fate of 75% of the other species on the planet at the time by inventing this totally new way to get along in the world. You can think about all the parasites that probably went extinct right alongside the mosasaurs and ichthyosaurs and all the dinosaurs that went extinct at that moment. But Amphi found a way to survive and lives with us until this day. And I just find that absolutely mind-blowing.
You got to improvise, adapt, overcome, like sometimes you got to change things up a little bit when life gives you an impact winter. Find a fish with a bunch of holes in it.
Put that on a t-shirt. Yes, absolutely.
I have to imagine this poor little parasite just swimming around totally lost and sad, cold and alone in a big empty ocean. And here comes this big old fish full of holes. And the little tapeworm's like, you know what? It'll do.
Salvation.
I'll take it. Beggars can't be choosers. Can you spell this name so that I can see what this creature looks like?
Sure. It's Amphelina, Amphilina, and Foliacea, Foliacea.
Okay, I see what you mean. It's a little nugget of a tapeworm.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it looks like just one little piece of it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is. Larval tapeworms start as just these little ovals, and when they wind up in the gut of their final host, they develop into their adult form with lots of segments. And Amphelina, magically, as a larva, is able to develop its gonads, reproduce, and carry on its life cycle, even though it never gets to that stage.
So they just straight up never even reach adulthood anymore. I guess anatomical adulthood, right?
Exactly.
But that's really interesting. It reminds me a lot of neotenous salamanders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is neoteny, exactly.
That's crazy. Because I've only ever heard of that being in axolotls and a few other different types of salamanders that just stay in their larval form forever because they're like, what do I need to go on land for? I'm not doing that. But this tapeworm is like, you know what? We don't need adulthood.
Exactly. We can manage without it. I'm sure it was a really nice life living in a mosasaur gut. Think of all that space. Think of all the food you'd just be bathing in, be in this cool Cretaceous ocean. What a cool adventure. But they figured out a way to get along without that incredible final host.
I was thinking living inside the mosasaur is a great way to protect you from the Cretaceous ocean. Because if there's any period of time I would not want to be in the ocean, it's the Cretaceous.
For real. Yeah. So many things that could eat us. So many.
They got some spooky pointy guys in the ocean and the Cretaceous. I think I'd like to be nice and snug inside of this mosasaur, please. The mosasaur was the thing from Jurassic World, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The big one? The
sure
big guy?
Is. Yeah. Imagine that thing full of worms.
There was also a beautiful scene in Prehistoric Planet was the name of the documentary series. Did you watch Prehistoric Planet?
No.
It was on Apple TV, and it's a David Attenborough documentary, but all on prehistoric, extinct species. And there was this really, really beautiful scene that involved a mosasaurus stopping at basically a cleaning station and having its body cleaned by all of these little cleaner fish and stuff.
Cool.
It was really, really gorgeous. They had a great sequence on mosasaurus and that. So, I mean, if you're gonna be hitching a ride, this is the Airbus of the ocean. Big old chunky guy.
Absolutely. It's what I would pick. Got to have the next Jurassic Park focus on the Jurassic parasites.
Oh my gosh. Oh, were there freaky parasites that we don't have anymore?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure there are. It's just really hard to know anything about the parasites from that time period because they're soft-bodied, right? They don't fossilize as well as bone or cartilage. And so we know very little about what was going on then. And just from, the very lucky fossils that we have that preserved any evidence of these animals. So probably, but we don't have the evidence that we need to say much about it. Now that is changing a little bit because folks have been making a lot of progress on resurrecting DNA from fossils. Not quite that old, if I'm remembering correctly. But we're now able to get what's called ancient DNA out of fossilized coprolites, for example, fossilized poop. There's this great study from a couple of years ago where they found a bunch of moa coprolites, so poops produced...
Oh, the big birds!
By the extinct birds that used to live on New Zealand. They all went extinct by 900 years ago. So their coprolites are old, but these researchers in New Zealand were able to get DNA out of those coprolites, and they were able to find the sequences of parasites that no longer exist.
Wow.
Nematodes and protozoans and trematodes that we don't have today. So at least we know.
Gone but never forgotten.
That's right. Well, not anymore anyway.
I was just trying to remember because I remembered this really, really interesting fossil that I learned about, like these really interesting fossils that I learned about one time when I was doing an episode of my other podcast, which was about cordyceps. And one of the really cool ways that I learned that like researchers learned about the evolutionary history of, the cordyceps, like the parasitic fungus, was by finding fossilized imprints of leaves. And like the leaves that they found fossils of had bite marks in them that are left behind specifically by like the behavior that the ants do when they're infected with the cordyceps fungus, when they like chomp down on a leaf and hold on to it. Like they found imprints of the ants doing that from like, I don't know, 50, 60 million years ago. And they were like, even though they couldn't preserve, like they couldn't find fossils of the actual like fungus itself, they could still find evidence of like the impact of the parasite, which is really, really cool and really interesting to me.
Totally wild. And we do get lucky sometimes and have circumstances like that. We also, for example, a lot of parasites that infect shelled bivalves leave evidence of the infection on the shells, and the shells last for a really long time and fossilize really well. And my lab recently did a study where we've got this shell-boring worm in Washington state that is a real problem for oyster aquaculture because it makes the shell look really gross. The worm like makes this pocket of mud on the inner surface of the shell. And it's not dangerous for people, but when you serve the oyster on the half shell, you don't want to serve it on a half shell that's covered in these mud blisters. That's really unappetizing.
Yeah.
It's a problem for the oyster farmers. And so we've been studying it, and we wondered whether it was a new species to the area, right? Like that it had been introduced from another location. And so we looked at archaeological sites full of shells, and we also looked at some fossil shells and tried to see whether the imprints of this worm were on those shells. And we found that the worm goes back something like 80,000 years in Washington state. It's been with us for a really long time. So not every parasite leaves that kind of evidence that you can track it through time, but some of them do. And where they do, it's just so cool to get this peek into the past. Now we know that worm is supposed to be in Washington, just we haven't noticed it until recently.
They were here longer than we were.
They sure were.
They were already here when we got here. We were the ones that were late. Chelsea, I have been delighted and slightly disturbed, but like in a fun way, by learning about all these parasites. For people who now have maybe got the bug and want to learn more about parasites, could you tell people where they can find your book?
Absolutely. The book is called Power to the Parasites: Everything You Never Wanted to Know About the Creepy Crawlies Hidden in Your Home, Your Food, Your Pets, and maybe even in you. It's from Macmillan, and you can get it wherever books are sold.
Amazing. I will have links to where people can find that in the episode description. Makes a good gift for the weirdo in your life, for the weird nerd in your life who likes to learn about weird and gross stuff, which, like you mentioned, being written for readers of the, what did you say, like 8 to 12
years old.
Okay.
Although we've been finding that lots of kids enjoy reading this book. I just did an event at the Seattle Aquarium with teenagers, and they were super excited about it.
I was going to say, kids like gross stuff.
They sure do.
Kids like weird and gross stuff. So, if you've got a young learner in your life who is fascinated by the strange and bizarre, I'll have links where you can find this book. Chelsea, where else can people find you on the internet? Where can people go next?
You can check out my website, which is www.chelsealwood.com. And there you can see all of our lab's research along with book updates. I'm working on a book about parasites for adults. It's called Netherworld: The Past, Present, and Future of Parasitism on Planet Earth. And that will be out in bookstores in 2026. And you can find me on Instagram at parasite_enthusiast.
What a banger title, by the way. Netherworld goes so hard.
That's what it is. Come join me in the netherworld.
You're probably going to get a lot of like fantasy fiction readers who are like, oh, cool new series, Netherworld.
I welcome it.
And that's how they get you. And then they open the book, they're like, oh, it's Parasite facts. Oh, well, might as well.
It's basically the same thing, except real.
See, it's got it all. It's got intrigue and sabotage and mystery. It's got everything you want. It's got everything you want from fantasy. The fantasy is all around us and within us.
Sure is.
The magic has been in you all along. Well, Chelsea, it has been an amazing time to talk parasites with you. Thank you so much for your time, for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
It has been. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that the ecosystem within you had a lovely time today. If you liked what you heard, I hope you leave behind some kind words for us in a review on your podcast app of choice. If you'd like to hang out with us online, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Blue Sky. Links to everything will be in the episode description. You can also send me an email at ellen@justthezooofus.com if you have a cool animal you'd like to hear us talk about on the show. We would like to thank Maximum Fun for having us on their network alongside their other amazing shows like the ones that you heard promos for here today. You can go check those out and learn more about the network and how you can be a part of supporting our show over at MaximumFun.org. Finally, we would like to thank Louis Zong for our theme music. That's all for today. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.